Welcome back. Those of you who are new, I am Foxy, your go-to roller Apex player. Today's video, I am going to be showing you my Apex settings that has given me the most success after 1,000 hours of Apex. If you have any questions, comment them down below, and I will be responding to you as soon as I possibly can, each and every comment. If this helps, be sure to subscribe and hit the like button so YouTube can send this to others to help them as well. Now let's get right into it. All right, so here we are in game, and all we'll do is obviously go over to settings. What I like to start with is we'll go through gameplay, talk a little bit about my M and K. I did about 5 months of M and K, and then we'll go to controller settings. And then to start with gameplay, I highly recommend if you're like know the buttons, I would just put this on compact. There's less on your screen and less clutter. Button hints, also turn that off as well. The damage, so this is one thing that's kind of like personal preference, but I think stacking is the best. And so what stacking is it shows like a combination of all the numbers that have recently hit. So say you hit a guy for 120, that's going to show a big 120 after you hit like the enemy. If you do floating, it's like say you're using a 9.9 and it hits for 11, it's just gonna put an 11 over and over and over again for every bullet that you hit. So when it comes to like playing ranked, what's very important is like giving call outs to your team. Like you hit a guy, focus this caustic, right? Focus this caustic because we all hate caustic. Focus this caustic because I hit him for 120, so he's only 30 health. Like focus that guy. So that's why I think stacking is the best. So I would highly change that. Weapon auto cycling on empty. Actually, this should be off. I'm not sure why that was on. Get used to your guns cycling through your weapons when you're empty. Don't use the auto cycle because sometimes you're not going to want to auto cycle. I have auto sprint on. This is personal preference because of the different keybinds that I'll get into here in a little bit. Jetpack, it's probably easier just to put this on hold because you can hold it in and you go up and then you let go and it like stops, so you don't have to continue going. You could use toggle, but I think that's a little bit more thinking about like when to push the button, like to use our jetpack. Other than that, this is all personal preference, like hop off. What's probably the most like important setting to change is taking damage when closing death block or crafting menu. Turn this to off. And the reason for this is because when you're trying to get a shield swap in the middle of a gunfight and you jump into a box and you get hit by a bullet, right? You're gonna not be able to get that shield swap if this is turned on. If this is off, you're not gonna come out of the box. Now you gotta be aware of your surroundings when you're in the death boxes more, but this is gonna be extremely crucial on to be able to make those quick exchanges on the shield swaps. So the only other thing, this is again down to personal preference. I used to play on Tritantanopia, but I switched it to Deuteranopia ? I think between one of those two, and this the reason for that is I did try Tampanopia because of the like my radical was yellow, which is easier to see my target behind my red dot, and so that's the reason why I did try Tantanopia. And then I did Durantanopia is because if you look, the color that's enemy, that is the color of your radical, and that's actually red, but it's a lighter red, which is more opaque than the yellow, so I'm gonna have a better chance of seeing my enemy, so it helps with my tracking a little bit. But again, that's all personal preference. It's like not gonna make you cracked out of your mind, but just something to go with. M and K, I have my mouse sensitivity to a 1.8, my ADS sensitivity to 1, and I don't use power optics for my mouse. I use a Logitech Superlight. So this mouse is like, it's expensive, but highly recommended if you can splurge on this. This is by far one of the best mouses I've ever used and highly recommend it for anyone. So yeah, so I turn off mouse acceleration. You want this off. Mouse invert, I don't know why you would play on invert settings. If you do, like, you're weird. But W, obviously I have up on my scroll wheel for tap strafing. Down is my jump. Crouch on my mouse button here. There's really not much to the M and K. The only thing I have different is I had to get used to like cycling through my weapons, so I changed it to R because I used to have it as swipe or up on my scroll wheel, so I had to change that because of tap strafing. So I had to relearn to like cycle my weapons and not use 1 and 2. So I played, like I said, I played M and K for like 5 months, and I got to like Diamond 3 where I was on controller. So I feel pretty comfortable in sharing my settings, but I'm still not the best. Move over to video. Things that are important for everyone are gonna be FOV. This is gonna be extremely important. Play on 110. 100 to 110, it's just going to be better. Your aim is going to be better. You're able to see more on your screen, and you just have a better from seeing other people and have better awareness in your gunfights. FOV ability scaling, disable this. So what this does is basically like say you're at 110 FOV and you use Octane Stim or like a Bloodhound ult, it's actually going to take your FOV to like 115. What this can actually do is throw your aim off. So again, getting used to the FOV, it is going to change your aim. So say you're sitting at 90 FOV and you switch to 110, your aim is going to feel a little different. but I promise you, if you can just get used to it and practice it in firing range, it's going to be worth it. Lastly, I would turn on your sprint to view on minimal. You don't want any kind of shaking on your screen because you want to have as clean picture as you possibly can. So lastly but not least, the bread of it all, controller. So button layout is going to be different. This is going to be something that you got to be comfortable with. So I play claw on an Xbox Elite 2 controller. So I got my paddles on the back. And so I play with my right hand over my Y in my X button. And the reason for that is when I first learned, as you can see, I customized my buttons. So my X is actually my jump. In my LB is actually my interact button, and my A is my ability. So those are like the very crucial ones, like putting crouch on R3. A lot of people do. I have that connected to one of my paddles, so I don't actually have to hit R3 for the right stick. And the reason why I have my X for my jump is because I had troubles like reaching all the way down with my pointer finger on my controller here. I had troubles reaching all the way down to A to hit jump, so I just put it on X, and I used to have interact on A, but I switched it to LB because I felt like it was a better fit. And whereas I can just casually reach down to hit A whenever I want to use my ultimate. So that's my button layout, for example. Stick layout, I would leave this the same. I've never heard or seen anyone playing Southpaw Legacy or Legacy Southpaw. Interact button, I use tap to use and tap to reload. Next is crouch. I would highly recommend putting this on hold instead of toggle. It does take some getting used to when it comes to like jump sliding around the map and stuff like that. But if you can get used to putting your crouch on hold, you can crouch spam a lot faster. Like if you can get crouch spamming down, you can make yourself very difficult to hit. Trigger dead zones, I would set this all the way to none. And if your trigger, like say your like controller's just it's shooting and you're not even touching your controller, then you probably want to up this dead zone to whatever you can as low as possible. Cursor's gonna kind of be preference, but I would try to recommend turning this up to at least like 35 to 40 to 50% of the way. This fluctuates sometimes for me depending on how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling real dangerous and spicy that day, I'll bump that up to like 50%. So it's just going to be kind of preference, but this is going to be important for picking up shield swaps and stuff whenever you're in loot boxes. I'll just briefly go through my sensitivity since I use ALCs, and I'll explain my ALCs when we get there. But I used to use a 5.5. I didn't have per optics. My response curve was linear since I use an Xbox Elite controller. And then I had a look dead zone of small. And the reason for that is because I had some stick drift, so I put it on small. Movement dead zone. This is going to be your left stick. I would just put this on small unless, again, you're moving. Like if you stand still and you're moving for whatever reason, then you might need to bump this up to large. So for ALCs, this is kind of where the bread and butter comes in. Personally, these settings fit to me. This is going to be something that you're going to have to go in and practice yourself. So like these settings fit me right, but these settings are going to work for me, and it's given me the best success over 1,000 hours of playing Apex. So some of these settings might have to be changed to your liking, but I think if you were to copy these and start with this as a base, you're going to probably like this. These are more of like a 5.5 sens or 5.4 sens, I believe, when it comes to like just regular sensitivity. If you're transferring them over to ALCs, you want to set this dead zone as low as possible. So I'm usually between 4 and 5 depending on what my stick drift feels that day. I would keep this outer threshold. This is like whenever you turn the extra yaw up, as you see I have a 230. If I crank this all the way up, that like outer circle gets smaller. So what that means is basically like, even though my controller joystick is going to travel all the way to this like corner of the circle or the rim, this whole area doesn't even get registered because you made your circle so small, your outer threshold so small. So basically you have like a shorter range of motion of your joystick whenever you do this. Keep this on either default 3, or I bump it all the way down to 2 to 1. It's just kind of like whatever you're feeling. So we got the yaw speed, which is turning left or right at 260. My pitch, which is up and down, and this is at 170. Like I said, this is around a 5 to 6 sens. So that's pretty comfortable for me, especially when it comes to like hip firing, say EVA 8 or Mastiff. Turning extra yaw. So I bumped this up slightly, and what this does is it basically allows you to turn quicker without sacrificing any of the fine control. So like once it hits that outer threshold, it's going to you're actually going to turn faster. So it's basically 260 plus 230, and that's gonna like add together. It's gonna be like 490, and so my actually sensitivity is gonna be like 490 instead of 260. So it's going to be 260 until I reach that outer threshold. Same with the turning extra pitch. The ramp up delay is just how long before the extra yaw. This is preference. I had this on 0, and then I noticed like it was really like jerky. As soon as I got to that point, it would just snap and my sensitivity would like fly up. I bumped this to 5 just so I have this small period of time where it kind of accelerates from the 260 to the 490. So again, it's personal preference, but this works for me. All this applies as well to the ADS. So my ADS yaw speed is 180, and my ADS pitch speed is 80 itself. So I would recommend not putting on the extra yaw and the extra pitch, and then obviously you want to turn your ramp down all the way down because you want to have more control with your ADS, right? So you're not making quick flicks while you're ADSing. You're going to make your flicks and those quick rotation whenever you're hip firing. So I just turn that all down because you want as much precision as you can when it comes to ADSing. Target compensation and melee target compensation, leave these both on. I will turn these off actually whenever I'm practicing in firing range because this is basically aim assist. So I turn off the aim assist so that I can get a more natural recoil pattern. And then when I go into game, it actually will make a difference if you actually practice like that. So you can get a natural recoil control, and then you turn on aim assist while you're in game. Obviously, you might as well use and abuse aim assist if you're on controller, because that's what we do. And yeah, that's that. All right, chat.